Welcome back to Process Cast with Mark Anderson and Samantha Blake, your go-to podcast for insights into business process management and the technologies transforming the way we work.
Ever been part of a team that just felt, stuck? Like everyone's paddling, maybe, but the boat's just not really going anywhere.
Yeah, or maybe you've seen the opposite, right? Those teams that seem to effortlessly crush every goal.
Exactly. And you're left wondering, how on earth do they do that? I think that's why folks are tuning in. You want to unlock that high-performing magic, figure out how to build a team that really clicks.
You want the practical stuff, not just theory.
Absolutely. The real strategies. And that's precisely what we've been looking into.
We've gathered some really interesting research, haven't we?
We have, from top business consultancies looking at leadership teams all the way through to, the core principles of team dynamics.
And the goal here is to give everyone listening a clear, kind of actionable toolkit.
Right. Those aha moments you can actually use, not just overwhelming information.
So where do we start with figuring out these high-performing teams?
Well, a lot of the really compelling stuff points right to the top, to leadership teams. Bain and Company's work, for instance, really highlights that the most successful companies, they're often led by executive teams that function as a genuine collective.
It's not just about having, individually brilliant people.
Exactly. It's the team aspect.
And what's really interesting is their research found this direct link, right, between businesses way outperforming competitors and having these super effective executive teams.
Yes, but here's the catch. They also found only about, 1 in 5 executive teams actually hits that high-performing level.
Only 1 in 5. So that begs the question, what are the others missing? What sets that top 20% apart?
Precisely. And Bain actually identified 5 key ways these top teams operate differently. Collective behaviors, they call them.
Okay, let's dive into those. What's the first one?
The first is direction. And look, this isn't just about having some strategy document somewhere.
No, it's much deeper. It's about a truly shared understanding of the vision, the purpose, the overall strategy.
And the key part, team members have actually helped shape it.
Right. And they've integrated it into their own priorities. It's not just something they've been told.
Bain had this great example, a huge multinational publishing company. On the surface, seemed like everyone in leadership meetings agreed with the strategy. But the CEO felt something was off, like there wasn't real buy-in.
And was he right?
He was. Turns out, many key leaders hadn't genuinely bought in. Why? Because they felt the strategy was just handed down to them. They hadn't co-created it.
Wow. That really shows the power of, inclusive strategy development, doesn't it?
It really does.
People need to feel that ownership. Just hearing it isn't enough.
So what did they do? They brought everyone together for an offsite, specifically focused on getting that collaborative input.
And that made the difference.
Apparently so. It built alignment and real commitment.
That makes sense. It's interesting, too, how that shared understanding needs to filter down, even when the big picture seems clear.
Yeah, Bain had another example, a global restaurant chain. Different parts of the business were kind of struggling to align how they executed the strategy.
Okay, so how did they fix that?
Their solution was really practical. They formed a sprint team.
A sprint team? To do what?
Specifically to help everyone understand each other's individual goals and strategies. Leaders interviewed each other, mapped things out using the same template.
So they could actually see the connections and the gaps.
Exactly. It surfaced immediate ways they could work together better, support each other. Less about just knowing the what, more about understanding the how.
Okay, so direction is number 1. What's the second key behavior Bain found?
Number 2 is discipline. Now, this might sound a bit, rigid.
Maybe.
But it's really more about having consistent, effective ways of making decisions and, importantly, running productive meetings.
Oh, don't get me started on unproductive meetings. How many hours have we all lost?
Right. And Bain's research really pinpoints why. Lack of organized time and space, sure, but also just not enough rigorous prep beforehand.
And clear rules during the meeting and follow through afterwards. It's the whole cycle.
Totally. Making that time together actually count.
Do they have an example for this one too?
Yep. A big $10 billion heavy equipment company. They were facing this massive strategic shift towards electric vehicles.
Okay, huge change.
And their old meeting structures, which worked fine before, just weren't cutting it for the kind of cross-functional innovation they needed now.
So did they scrap everything?
No, and that's what's interesting. They made targeted changes, more frequent strategic talks, a separate operating committee for routine stuff.
So they could focus the main leadership meetings on the big change the business topics.
Exactly. It shows how even relatively simple structural tweaks can make a big difference in executing strategy.
And discipline isn't only about meetings, right? It's also about role clarity.
Good point, yes. Bain mentioned a global practice in a professional services firm that held a specific role clarity session.
Why is that so critical, even at the top?
Well, I think often there are these unspoken assumptions, maybe misunderstandings about who owns what, how roles connect.
The invisible dependencies.
Precisely. Bringing that out into the open, maybe in a structured way, can just smooth things out, reduce friction, lead to better collaboration.
Okay, so direction, discipline. What's number 3?
Number 3 is collaboration. And this is, again, way more than just being friendly.
Right. It's about deep trust, solving tough problems together.
Brainstorming effectively, holding each other accountable for results.
Bain talks about this win together, lose together mentality.
Yeah, and that's built on strong relationships, both personal and working ones.
And inclusion, psychological safety, that feeling that you can actually take a risk, suggest a new idea, give honest feedback.
Without fearing you'll get shot down or penalized.
Exactly. That's vital for innovation.
They use that global restaurant chain, again, to illustrate this. How the leaders deliberately built collaboration. Through those quarterly market visits they mentioned, leaders didn't just fly in and out. They traveled together, spent time with franchisees, had dedicated one-on-ones.
So investing in the human connection piece.
Right, especially in big, dispersed companies. Those informal chances to connect really build that foundation of trust.
Makes sense. Okay, what's the 4th behavior?
The 4th is dynamism. This feels incredibly relevant today. It's about being constantly ready for change and actually leading it.
Yeah, the pace of change isn't slowing down.
And a key part of dynamism, Bain says, is continuous learning.
Always seeking out new info inside and outside the organization.
And creating the conditions for innovation, putting resources behind it, allowing for experimentation.
And accepting that not everything will work. Allowing for failure, even.
That restaurant chain example pops up again here. They felt they weren't innovative enough.
So what did they do?
They literally built a mandatory innovation hour into their monthly leadership meetings. Just carved out the time.
And did it work?
Amazingly, yes. In the very first session, they identified a potential new global product concept.
Wow. Just by dedicating the time and space.
It shows the power of intention, right? And dynamism also means having a bias for action, getting things done.
And learning from failures, not just successes.
Yeah, Bain highlighted a talent center of excellence that had, get this, a failure of the month segment in their meetings.
Seriously, failure of the month. That's brave.
But brilliant, right? Talk about a growth mindset, turning mistakes into learning fuel.
That's fantastic. Okay, so we have direction, discipline, collaboration, dynamism. What's the 5th and final one from Bain?
The 5th is drive. This is about that grit, that resilience.
Industriousness, focus, especially when things get tough.
Exactly. When setbacks happen, which they inevitably do, it's about maintaining focus, being detail-oriented when needed, embracing robust debate.
Constructive debate, though.
Yes, constructive debate and constantly reiterating those goals, keeping everyone pulling in the same direction, even through challenges like, say, the pandemic.
Bain saw that teams with strong drive didn't just survive the pandemic. Many actually found new ways to thrive.
So those are the 5 from Bain. Direction, discipline, collaboration, dynamism, and drive. It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. It shows that building a great team is less about just collecting superstars.
And much more about cultivating how they actually work together, the collective behaviors.
And, stepping back, these behaviors provide a really strong foundation. But there's another layer, isn't there? The human element.
Ah, yes. Belonging. Trust.
Which feels especially critical now with everything we've seen around the Great Resignation and shifts in workforce expectations. EY's been looking closely at this.
Right. People want more than just a paycheck these days. There's a deeper need.
Exactly. And EY brings in this idea of high-belonging teams. They see it as a powerful antidote to attrition.
And crucially, it's not just about retention, is it?
No. That's the key insight. Teams where people feel they truly belong, where they feel connected and accepted, they're also significantly higher performing.
They mentioned this belonging tax that can sometimes come with hybrid work.
Yeah, people feeling isolated, maybe missing out on those informal chats, or even feeling like advancement opportunities aren't equal if they're not always in the office.
So how do high-belonging teams fight that?
Well, they actively create an environment where every single person feels valued, seen, heard, and treated fairly.
Seen for who they are, authentically.
Precisely. It taps right into that fundamental human need for connection.
And that sense of belonging, it's so deeply linked to trust. EY's own research, their empathy and business survey, showed that.
Yeah, leaders who show empathy. They foster more loyalty, definitely, but also more psychological safety, less stress on the team.
Which makes perfect sense. When people feel they belong, they bring their whole selves to work.
Absolutely. They're more willing to take risks, share diverse ideas, which fuels innovation, collaborate better.
And they're just more engaged, more fulfilled. It's a virtuous cycle.
It reminds you of Maslow's hierarchy, doesn't it? That need for love and belonging. When the workplace helps meet that need,
people are naturally more invested, more motivated, more likely to stick around and do great work.
So the big question then is, how do you actually build these high-belonging teams? EY gives 7 practical steps.
Okay, let's hear them. What's step 1?
First, lead with purpose. Constantly reinforce the why, the daily mission, the future vision, the core values.
Second,
Empower employees to be their authentic selves. Create a culture where personal purpose can align with the organization's.
third is about leaders, right?
Yes, upskilling leaders and executives, specifically in coaching for belonging, because it's felt at the team level.
Makes sense. Fourth,
Measure it and hold leaders accountable. Don't just talk about it. EY even suggests something like a net belonging score, or MBS.
wow, okay, making it concrete. What's fifth?
Adopt a trust accelerator mindset. That means proactively investing in actions that show people it's safe to be authentic.
Sixth sounds like it goes even higher up.
It does. Hold company execs accountable, maybe even linking high-belonging team metrics to their compensation.
That sends a serious message. And the final step.
7th is consciously evolving the employee value proposition, the EVP, to genuinely satisfy that need to belong, recognizing it's a core expectation now.
Okay, so we've got Bain's collective behaviors for leadership teams, and now EY's focus on individual belonging and trust. It's really highlighting that it's about process and people.
Fundamentally about understanding and nurturing people. And building on that, KPMG offers another really useful way to look at it. They call it the MAGIC framework.
Magic. I like the sound of that, especially for unlocking potential in complex situations.
Right, and they make this crucial point first. Technology alone isn't the answer. It's not the magic bullet.
You need the human foundation first. Connection, collaboration, then tech can amplify it.
Exactly. So their MAGIC framework is an acronym. MAGIC.
Okay, break it down for us. What's M?
M is for mindset. This is about that shared vision, clear goals, shared values, getting everyone aligned so they can even anticipate each other's needs.
Makes sense. A?
A is adaptability. The team's ability to pivot, to adjust, based on continuous feedback and a commitment to growth.
Okay, yeah.
G is ground rules. These are the basics, but essential. Clear goals, clear roles, clear processes. The how of working together effectively.
Got it. Is interconnections. This really emphasizes the strong relationships and engagement between team members. Better connections mean better communication, better collaboration.
Like that USA women's rugby team example they used.
Exactly. How their interconnectedness fueled success.
And finally, C.
C is connected leadership. This is about empowering teams, giving them ownership, fostering innovation and trust through maybe a more decentralized approach.
Again, like the rugby team's leadership style.
Precisely.
It's helpful how KPMG uses those real examples, the rugby team, Pixar, Spotify, to show these magic principles in action. Makes it less abstract.
It really does. It shows that achieving that high-performance magic isn't luck. It takes deliberate effort focused on these 5 elements.
So many great frameworks. And Deloitte adds another interesting lens with their business peloton idea.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Viewing the organization as a team of teams.
Like a cycling peloton, right?
Yeah.
Fluid, self-organizing to some extent. Exactly. And they focus on the conditions needed for teams to be effective within that peloton. They identified 5 key conditions.
Okay, what's the first condition according to Deloitte?
First is a supportive environment. And this is broad.
More than just comfy chairs and good coffee.
Yes. It's the whole context, the workplace, the social vibe, the physical space, the wider ecosystem.
And the manager plays a big role here.
A critical role in creating it. They also note the extra challenges for cross-functional teams getting resources, navigating governance.
So what does a supportive environment include?
Things like the right tools, resources, information access, clear structures, cooperation between groups, an aligned culture, autonomy, even favorable external conditions matter.
The Peloton analogy works well here, too. The riders need the mechanics, the support cars, the whole crew.
Precisely. The core team can't perform at its peak without that whole support system working well.
Okay, condition 1, supportive environment. What's 2?
Second is compelling direction. We heard this from Bain, too, right? That shared vision.
The mission, the goals, the purpose that shapes strategy.
And Deloitte stresses it needs both long-term vision and shorter-term goals, and it has to create real buy-in. Clear, challenging, achievable, meaningful, ethical.
Especially vital for those cross-functional teams juggling different priorities.
Definitely. Condition 3.
Third is diversity. And Deloitte looks at this in a few ways.
Okay.
Diversity in roles, like specialists, diversity in identity demographics, and interestingly, cognitive diversity.
Different ways of thinking and problem solving.
Exactly. Like in cycling, you need sprinters and climbers, different skills for different challenges.
But you need the right environment to actually leverage that diversity, right? Not just have it.
Absolutely. You need complementary roles and enabling practices.
Okay, fourth condition.
Fourth is effective practices. These are the actions, the habits, the rituals, the norms that kind of glue the team together day to day.
Like the Sir Dave Brailsford British cycling example, marginal gains.
Yes, where even simple things like rigorous hand washing were seen as a performance practice.
It's about how the team interacts with its environment, sets goals, uses its diversity.
And Deloitte makes a useful distinction here between these often unspoken, context-specific practices and formal, standardized processes.
Right. Processes for routine stuff, practices for complexity and ambiguity.
Okay. And the fifth and final condition from Deloitte.
Fifth is psychological safety. We've heard this from EY, too. It's clearly critical.
That culture of trust, cohesion, where people feel safe.
Safe to speak up, take risks, disagree constructively, without fear of being embarrassed or punished.
They mentioned Google's Project Aristotle findings here.
Yeah, that huge study that found psychological safety was the strongest predictor of high-performing teams at Google.
So how do you foster it? What practices help?
Things like actively inviting voice, acknowledging successes publicly, critiquing ideas, not people, creating that safe space intentionally.
It's really striking, isn't it, how all these different perspectives, Bain, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, they keep circling back to similar core ideas.
Absolutely. You see these themes recurring again and again.
That shared vision and goals.
Effective communication, collaboration.
That bedrock of trust and psychological safety.
Adaptability.
Agility. And that supportive environment. It all connects.
It really drives home that building great teams isn't accidental. It's not just hiring smart people.
No, it's an intentional, ongoing effort. It requires focus on both the collective, how the team works together,
and the individual. Their well-being, their sense of belonging. You need both.
So for everyone listening, as you think about the teams you're part of, or maybe teams you lead,
perhaps consider this.
Yeah.
Which one of these practices or conditions we've talked about could you start putting into place, even in a small way, right now?
Yeah. What's one thing you could do differently tomorrow to start fostering that high-performance culture?
What resonated most? Was it direction, belonging, psychological safety? Thinking about why a particular aspect stood out to you? Well, that's often the best place to start making a real difference.
Thank you for listening to ProcessCast. This episode was brought to you by Heflo, the BPM platform that empowers businesses to document, automate, and optimize their processes with AI. Experience the intelligence to simplify complex business processes and accelerate your growth with our complete management solution. Visit heflo.com to learn more. Be sure to follow ProcessCast for more insights on business process management, and don't forget to share this episode with your network. Until next time.